The hangar was quiet, colder than Elias had expected. The lights flickered every few seconds, casting long shadows across the walls. Metal crates and containers were stacked high, their surfaces scratched and dented from years of use. The smell of oil and old machinery filled the air, and every sound echoed like it came from far away. Elias walked slowly, his boots clanging against the metal floor, scanning the empty hangar. He had been called here for a routine inspection, but something in his gut told him this was not ordinary. He had heard rumors about the secret shipments that arrived here, creatures no one understood, experiments no one dared talk about. Humans had a habit of forgetting the small lives in the rush of progress. Elias had always been different. From the moment he could walk, he had a habit of looking closer, noticing the tiny details that others ignored. Something told him today he would notice something that would change everything. As he walked past a row of old cargo pods, a soft sound reached his ears. At first, he thought it was the wind. Hangars always carried strange noises, but then he heard it again, clearer this time. A tiny, desperate squeak, almost like a whisper. He stopped and turned, peering into the shadows. The sound came from a small gap under one of the larger cargo pods. Elias crouched and looked closer. At first, he saw nothing but darkness. Then, a pair of large, round eyes stared back at him. The eyes were wet, shimmering, full of fear and pain. They were not human eyes, and they were not animal eyes he had ever seen. They were larger, more intelligent, filled with a strange, silent plea. He leaned closer. The creature was small, about the size of a cat, but its scales glimmered faintly, reflecting the weak light above. Its body shivered violently, tiny breaths coming in quick gasps. "Mama," it whispered. The word was soft, barely audible, but Elias could feel the weight behind it. "Mama is dying." Elias froze. The voice sounded like it was inside his mind, not just his ears. His heart began to race. He had never experienced anything like this. He had faced storms, pirates, alien creatures, even deadly black holes, but this was different. The little creature was calling for help, and only he seemed to hear it. He reached out slowly, keeping his hand steady so as not to frighten it. The creature flinched at first but didn't run. Its eyes stayed on him, wide and trusting. Elias could see the pain in its small chest, the way it tried to breathe through its trembling body. He knew immediately that if he didn't help, it would not survive the night. "Don't worry," he whispered. "I won't let anything happen to you." The words felt strange coming from him, almost like a promise he had never made before. But he meant them. Something about this small creature made him certain that he had to act. He glanced around. The hangar was silent again, the shadows moving as if the building itself was alive. He could hear the faint hum of the lights above, the low vibration of machinery, but nothing else stirred. No humans, no drones, no alarms. Elias carefully pulled the cargo pod aside, revealing a small, cramped space beneath. The little dragon, as he realized it must be, had curled up on a piece of torn fabric. Its wings were tiny, folded tightly against its body. Its tail twitched weakly. Elias knelt down, brushing a hand lightly over its shimmering scales. They were warm despite the cold air, and the creature pressed its head against his palm. "I'm here," Elias said. "I'll help you. I promise." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the little dragon made a soft sound, almost like a sigh, and its eyes closed briefly. Elias could feel its tiny heart beating rapidly under his hand. He knew the creature was hurt badly, and that he had no time to waste. If he delayed, it might not survive long enough to reach proper help. He stood, looking around the hangar again. Security drones were supposed to patrol this area, but none were visible yet. He had to move quickly. He wrapped the small dragon gently in his jacket, careful not to squeeze too tightly, and held it against his chest. Its warmth seeped into him, and he felt a strange connection, as if it could sense his determination. As he made his way toward the ship's medical bay, he heard a distant voice over the comms. "Captain Varn? You are not authorized in that section." Step away from the pod immediately. Elias froze. He glanced down at the dragon, whose tiny eyes were wide and fearful again. He knew that if he turned back now, the creature would not survive. Something inside him snapped into focus. He ignored the voice, moving faster but carefully, weaving through the crates and machinery. Every step was dangerous, but he had never let danger stop him before. Not for someone who needed help. By the time he reached the ship's entrance to the hangar, Elias had made a decision. No one else believed in this small creature. No one else would risk themselves for it. But he would. He had seen suffering before. He had seen injustice. And now, staring into the pleading eyes of the dragon child, he knew what courage truly meant. He pushed the doors open, holding the shivering creature close. Outside, the stars shone cold and distant. The journey ahead would be impossible, and he might lose everything, but Elias didn't hesitate. Some risks, he knew, were worth taking. And this tiny dragon, was one of them. Elias held the small dragon close as he stepped into the ship's medical bay. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and machines, but to him it smelled like hope. The hatchling shivered in his arms, and Elias felt a pang of guilt for having waited so long to help. He had seen suffering before, yes, but never like this. Never a creature that looked at him with such intelligent, pleading eyes, as if it already knew he was the only one who could save it. He set the dragon down on a soft medical mat, brushing his hands over its shimmering scales. They felt smooth, almost silky, and surprisingly warm. The dragon tilted its head, watching him with tiny, golden eyes that glimmered with pain. "Mama," it whispered again, so softly he could barely hear it. Elias swallowed hard. Its mother was dying, somewhere out there in the hangar, and he didn't even know where. He pulled up the medical console, scanning the dragon quickly. Its small body was pale, trembling, and the readings were terrible. Its heartbeat was weak, its breathing shallow. Elias had worked on injured humans, animals, even alien species during his career, but this was beyond anything he had faced. He didn't have the equipment designed for dragons, and the ship's med bay was too small for proper treatment. Yet he knew he couldn't wait. A sudden noise made him look up. The door hissed, and a security officer appeared, a stern expression on his face. "Captain Varn," the officer said sharply, "what are you doing here? That area is off limits. That creature is dangerous. Step away from it immediately." Elias didn't move. He crouched closer to the dragon, holding it protectively. "It's dying," he said quietly. "If I don't help, it won't make it. Do you want to be responsible for that?" The officer's eyes narrowed. "That's not your concern. You're risking your career, your life. This is an alien specimen. Protocols exist for a reason." Elias clenched his jaw. Protocols. Rules. Orders. He had spent years following them, but there were moments in life when rules meant nothing. This was one of them. The tiny dragon looked up at him with eyes full of hope and fear. No protocol mattered if it didn't survive. He lifted the dragon gently. "I don't care about the rules," he said. "I'm not leaving it to die." The officer shook his head. "You're insane." Elias ignored him. He had already made his choice. His hands were steady, his heart racing, but his mind was clear. He would save this creature, no matter the cost. He carefully adjusted the dragon in his arms and moved toward the ship's rear hatch. Outside, the stars glimmered, distant and cold, but he felt a warmth inside, a fire that told him courage was worth every risk. He found a small storage compartment at the back of the ship, away from prying eyes. It was cramped, but it was safe for now. He laid the dragon down on a soft blanket, brushing it gently. The creature curled into a tiny ball, shivering less now but still weak. Elias studied it closely. Its wings were fragile, translucent in some parts, but he could see strength hidden in the delicate lines of its body. He sat down beside it, his mind racing. This was not just a creature, it was a life that depended on him. And no one else believed it mattered. Not the officers, not the scientists, not anyone in the hangar. Only Elias had the courage, or perhaps the stubbornness, to see it for what it was. A memory flashed across his mind. When he was a child on the colony, he had found an injured bird lying in the dirt. Everyone told him to leave it, that it wouldn't survive anyway. But he had spent hours caring for it, keeping it warm, feeding it, until it could fly again. That bird had survived because someone had chosen to care. And now, staring at the dragon hatchling, he realized that same choice was being demanded of him again, only the stakes were much higher. He reached out, brushing the dragon's small head with his fingers. "I'll get you through this," he whispered. "No one else has to understand. I just need you to survive." The dragon's eyes blinked slowly, a small shiver running through its body. Elias felt a strange connection, a bond forming that went beyond words. The creature seemed to know he meant it, and for the first time, it relaxed slightly in his arms. Minutes passed, and the silence of the storage compartment was broken only by the dragon's weak breathing. Elias considered the next step. He couldn't stay on the ship forever, security would come looking. He couldn't take it back to the hangar, not while its mother was dying and the corporation might seize it. He would need to find a sanctuary, a safe place far away, where no one could stop him from helping. But even as he thought about the journey ahead, doubt crept in. Could he really succeed? Could a single human truly protect a creature that no one else believed in? His mind went over the risks, discovery, punishment, even death. And yet, there was no hesitation. He had faced impossible odds before, but this was different. This was personal. This tiny dragon, so fragile and scared, had chosen him to be its protector. Elias leaned back, closing his eyes briefly. He felt the dragon shift slightly in his arms, a tiny sound escaping from its throat, a soft, hopeful sigh. That sigh told him everything he needed to know. Courage wasn't about following orders. Courage was about standing up when no one else would, even when the cost was unknown. And Elias had decided. He would risk everything. His reputation, his safety, his life. None of that mattered if this little creature survived. If he could save it, he would prove that humans could still act with heart, with bravery, with honor. He opened his eyes and looked down at the dragon. "We start now," he said firmly. "No one else believes in you, but I do. And I'll show them what humans can do." The dragon looked up at him again, its tiny eyes wide, glimmering with trust. Elias felt a swell of determination he had never felt before. Whatever came next, he would not fail. Not this time. Elias carried the dragon hatchling carefully through the ship, heading for the escape pod at the rear. Every step felt heavy, but he didn't slow down. He could hear the faint hum of the engines, the creak of metal under strain, and in the back of his mind, the voice of the security officer warning him again. But he ignored it. There was no turning back. The small dragon squirmed in his arms, shivering slightly, but it seemed calmer than before. Its eyes followed him, bright and trusting. Elias felt a strange warmth, a bond that went beyond words. He had faced death many times, space storms, pirates, alien predators, but he had never felt responsibility like this. The life in his hands was tiny, fragile, but it carried a strength that made his heart race. As he approached the escape pod, a sudden alarm blared. Red lights flashed across the walls. Unauthorized transport detected, a voice echoed through the ship. Drones whirred into action, scanning the corridors. Elias knew he had seconds to act. He ducked into a maintenance corridor, taking the tight turns carefully so the drones would have trouble following him. He reached the pod and quickly entered the launch codes. The hatchling whimpered as the pod systems powered up. Elias whispered, "We're almost out of here. Just a little longer, little one." The dragon's wings twitched nervously, but it didn't struggle. It seemed to understand that he was trying to save it. The pod detached from the ship, floating silently into the blackness of space. Elias guided it carefully, checking the trajectory toward the nearby star system. He knew the dragon's survival depended on speed and stealth. Any delay could mean capture, or worse. Outside the pod's viewport, the stars stretched endlessly. Elias had flown through dangerous sectors before, but this felt different. He wasn't just protecting cargo or human lives, he was protecting a life that depended entirely on him, a life no one else believed in. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him, but instead of fear, he felt determination. This was human courage in its purest form, risking everything for someone who couldn't fight back. Hours passed, and the dragon hatchling remained surprisingly quiet. It rested against his chest, its warmth seeping through the thin blanket he had wrapped it in. Elias checked the pod's medical systems again. The dragon's heartbeat was weak, its breathing shallow. He needed to find a planet with an atmosphere, with resources, somewhere it could recover. Somewhere no one could find them. Suddenly, a storm of space debris appeared ahead. Meteoroids and fragments from a destroyed satellite field spun dangerously close. Elias's hands tightened on the controls. He swerved the pod sharply, dodging the larger fragments, but a smaller shard scraped the side, leaving a spark. The dragon hissed softly, frightened. Elias whispered, "It's okay. We're fine. Just a little bump." The pod shook violently, throwing Elias slightly against the console. He gritted his teeth, focused entirely on steering. His training, instincts, and human ingenuity took over. He calculated angles, used the pod's thrusters with precision, and finally cleared the storm. Outside, the stars were calm again, the silence of space settling around them. Elias exhaled slowly, glancing down at the dragon. Its small chest rose and fell steadily. "You're tougher than you look," he murmured. The dragon blinked at him, as if understanding the words. For a moment, Elias felt hope, a fragile, delicate hope, but hope nonetheless. But then came the next challenge. Sensors picked up a patrol ship approaching. The corporation would not let them go easily. Elias's stomach twisted. There was no way to fight a ship like that in a tiny pod. They would capture the dragon, take it away, and possibly destroy it. He had to think fast. He activated the pod's stealth mode, a risky maneuver that drained energy quickly. The pod's hull dimmed, its lights flickering as the ship's systems masked them from detection. Elias held his breath as the patrol ship passed, engines humming nearby. He could hear the faint clatter of debris against the distant hull. For a moment, he thought they had been discovered. Then, slowly, the patrol ship moved on, leaving them alone. Elias allowed himself a small smile. "We made it," he whispered. The dragon stirred, lifting its tiny head and looking at him. Elias felt a surge of pride. Against all odds, he had protected it. He had saved a life that no one else cared about. And that, he realized, was what being human meant: courage, persistence, and the choice to stand up when no one else would. As the pod approached the planet's atmosphere, Elias adjusted the controls for descent. He could see the surface ahead, green and blue, promising safety, life, and shelter. The dragon's wings twitched again, stronger this time, as if it could sense that they were close. Elias smiled faintly, feeling exhaustion settle into his bones. He had risked everything to save this little creature, and somehow, he had made it this far. The landing was rough, but manageable. Elias guided the pod to a soft clearing near a forested area. The dragon chirped softly, a sound of relief and trust. Elias opened the pod hatch carefully and lowered the creature to the ground. It stretched its small wings, looking around the alien world. Then it looked up at him, eyes shining with gratitude and something else: hope. Elias felt a lump in his throat. Against impossible odds, they had survived. The journey was far from over, but he knew one thing: humans could be more than brave. They could be compassionate, fearless, and relentless when it mattered most. And he would not stop here. He would protect this dragon, guide it, and show the galaxy what humans were capable of: courage, heart, and honor. The dragon chirped again, soft and melodic, and Elias whispered, "We're just getting started." The forest planet stretched out before Elias, alive with color and sound. Strange plants glowed faintly in the twilight, and small animals scuttled between roots and rocks. The air smelled fresh, sharp, and clean, a sharp contrast to the metallic tang of the hangar he had left behind. The dragon hatchling stepped cautiously onto the ground, its tiny claws sinking slightly into the soft soil. It looked around, its wings fluttering nervously. Elias followed closely, scanning the area. He knew this planet might be safe, but danger could be anywhere. For hours, they moved through the dense forest, searching for shelter. Elias built a small enclosure with branches and soft leaves to protect the dragon. He found a stream nearby, letting the hatchling drink small sips. It whimpered faintly, weak from hunger and exhaustion, but it slowly started to regain some strength. Elias smiled, a small spark of hope lighting in his chest. For now, they were safe. But safety was temporary. Elias could feel it. He was not alone. Sensors on his pod had picked up movement in orbit earlier, corporate ships tracking them. The corporation would not give up so easily. They had powerful weapons, trained soldiers, and cold, calculating minds. And yet, Elias had something they did not: courage and determination, and the belief that no life, no matter how small, was unworthy of protection. As he set up the temporary camp, a low roar echoed through the forest. The hatchling froze, ears twitching, eyes wide. Elias stiffened. Then he saw it. A massive shadow moved between the trees, its wings wide and body battered but strong. The mother dragon had arrived. She was enormous, her scales pale but glowing faintly, a sickly shimmer hinting at the injuries she carried. Her eyes locked onto the hatchling immediately, full of desperation and fear. The hatchling ran forward, weak but determined. Elias stepped back instinctively. The mother dragon lowered her head, looking at him with eyes full of accusation, sorrow, and a silent plea. Elias understood immediately. This was why the creature had been left behind. It had been trying to survive while the mother struggled elsewhere. And now, she had come, but she was near death. The ground trembled as the mother dragon roared, a sound that shook the air and rattled the leaves. Elias felt the power in her voice, raw and wild, yet tempered by exhaustion. He realized that this was not just an animal, it was intelligent, aware, capable of thought and emotion. He also realized that he was in more danger than ever. If the corporation caught them here, the mother dragon would not survive, and neither would the hatchling. Suddenly, a fleet of corporate ships appeared in the sky, scanning beams piercing through the trees. The forest lit up with harsh white lights. Elias' heart raced. There was no way to outrun them in this terrain. The pod had been left behind, he had no weapons capable of fighting them. All he had was his mind, courage, and the dragons themselves. The mother dragon hissed, a warning that Elias immediately understood. She was ready to defend her child, even if it cost her life. Elias knew he had to act fast. He grabbed a small pack of flare devices from his belt and launched them into the trees, creating bursts of light and smoke. The patrol ship's sensors were thrown off for a moment, giving him precious seconds. Then he spoke, softly, almost as if the dragons could hear him. "We can do this," he whispered. "We have to. I won't let them take you." The mother dragon roared again, louder this time, and the hatchling chirped in response. Elias realized something incredible. The dragons were communicating, coordinating. They understood strategy, timing, and purpose. The mother stepped between him and the approaching danger, wings spread wide, chest low. She was ready to sacrifice herself to protect him and the hatchling. The first corporate ship fired a pulse at them, and Elias felt the heat ripple across the air. He ducked, grabbing the hatchling to keep it safe. The mother dragon leaped, knocking the pulse off its path, her body moving with grace and precision despite her injuries. Elias' eyes widened. He had never seen anything like this. Humans were clever, but dragons, these dragons, had intelligence, strength, and courage that matched any human warrior. Elias took a deep breath, calculating quickly. He grabbed a small signal device, using it to hack the ship's sensors. The lights flickered, the beams shifted, and for a moment, the fleet lost track of them. Elias felt a surge of triumph. They had survived, for now. But the mother dragon groaned, pain evident in her movements. Elias knew she couldn't hold out much longer. He knelt beside her, brushing a hand over her scaly head. "I'll get your child safe," he whispered. "I promise. You can trust me." The dragon's eyes softened for a brief moment, as if she understood. She gave a weak, shuddering roar, then collapsed against the earth. Elias felt a heavy weight in his chest. The mother had given everything to protect her hatchling, and now it was up to him to honor her sacrifice. He lifted the small dragon into his arms, feeling its tiny heartbeat against his chest. Elias knew the corporation would come back, stronger, faster, more prepared. But he had learned something crucial: humans, when determined, could stand alongside the strongest creatures in the galaxy. Courage, heart, and intelligence were weapons even the most powerful fleets could not fully predict. Elias stood tall, despite exhaustion, fear, and the weight of the mother dragon's sacrifice. He whispered again to the hatchling, "We survive. Together. No one else has to understand. I will protect you, always." The hatchling chirped softly, nuzzling his chest. Elias glanced at the sky, seeing the distant ships retreating for now. The battle was far from over, but he felt a spark of hope. Courage, he realized, was contagious. And in that moment, human courage and dragon courage stood side by side, ready to face whatever the galaxy would throw at them next. The hatchling rested in Elias' arms as he guided them through the forest, deeper into the planet where no patrol ships could reach. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the strange, glowing trees. Elias felt exhaustion in every muscle, but he refused to slow down. He had promised the mother dragon he would protect her child, and he intended to keep that promise. The small dragon looked up at him occasionally, eyes wide and trusting. It chirped softly, a tiny sound that filled Elias' chest with warmth. He had risked everything, his reputation, his safety, and even his life, but the reward was greater than he could have imagined. This life, fragile and small, had chosen him. And in return, he had chosen to fight for it. Elias reached a clearing with a small waterfall cascading into a crystal pool. The water shimmered in the late light, and Elias felt hope rise inside him. This would be their sanctuary, at least for now. He set the hatchling down on a bed of soft leaves, letting it stretch its tiny wings. It trembled, weak but alive, and Elias smiled, feeling pride mixed with relief. He looked around the clearing. The forest was alive, strange plants glowing softly, small creatures moving quietly among the undergrowth. Elias realized this planet was a safe haven, untouched by humans or corporations. For the first time, he felt like they could truly rest. But he knew the journey wasn't over. The corporation might return. They would not give up easily. Elias knelt beside the hatchling, brushing a gentle hand over its head. "You're safe for now," he whispered. "I'll make sure you grow strong. You'll never be alone again." The hatchling chirped, nuzzling against his hand. Its trust, pure and unbroken, filled him with determination. Humans had courage, he realized, but courage combined with compassion could move worlds. He thought of the mother dragon, her sacrifice heavy in his mind. She had given everything to protect her child, and now it was his turn to honor her. Elias set up a small enclosure with branches and leaves, keeping the hatchling warm. He gathered food from the forest, feeding it carefully, watching as it ate with small, trembling movements. Every bite it took was a victory, every chirp a reminder of why he had risked everything. Night fell, and the forest glowed with a faint, magical light. Elias sat by the hatchling, watching the stars above through the canopy. The sky was vast, filled with countless worlds he had traveled and countless dangers he had faced. And yet, in this small clearing, he felt a peace he had never known. For once, he had acted not for duty, not for orders, not for fame, he had acted simply because it was the right thing to do. The hatchling snuggled closer, its tiny body warm against his chest. Elias whispered again, "We're going to survive. Together. And someday, you'll grow stronger than anyone expects. The little dragon blinked up at him, eyes shining. In those eyes, Elias saw potential, power, intelligence, and a bond that could change the galaxy. He realized then that humans were not alone in the universe. There were creatures worth fighting for, allies in unexpected forms, and moments that proved courage could overcome fear. Days passed. Elias taught the hatchling to use its small wings, to balance and hop across rocks, and to trust in his guidance. Each day, it grew stronger, its scales brighter, its movements more confident. And each day, Elias felt a quiet pride that no medal or rank could ever give him. He had saved a life, defied impossible odds, and proven that one human could make a difference. One evening, as they rested near the pool, Elias looked up at the sky. A faint glow on the horizon suggested patrol ships, returning to search the planet. He tightened his grip on the hatchling and whispered, "We're ready. They'll never take you." The hatchling chirped in agreement, small but determined. Elias smiled. Together, they were stronger than anyone expected. Then, something miraculous happened. The hatchling made a small, glowing circle in the air with its tiny claws, a faint trail of light forming as it moved. Elias watched in awe. It was learning, growing, showing a power he had not imagined in such a small creature. The potential was limitless. One day, this dragon could become a force that changed the galaxy. And he had been there from the beginning, the human who had risked everything to save it. Elias stood, carrying the hatchling, and walked to the top of a small hill overlooking the clearing. The stars above seemed brighter now, the forest alive with promise. He whispered softly, "This is just the beginning. One day, the universe will see what humans can do: compassion, courage, and the will to protect what matters." The hatchling chirped again, nuzzling him. Elias felt a deep sense of satisfaction and hope. The mother dragon's sacrifice had not been in vain. He had honored her trust. And the little dragon, fragile but alive, had become a symbol of human bravery, proof that courage could stand against impossible odds. For the first time in a long while, Elias allowed himself to relax. The stars stretched endlessly above him, and the wind carried the quiet sounds of the forest. He knew challenges would come again, but he also knew this: humans, when determined, could protect life, inspire hope, and change destinies. And as he watched the hatchling stretch its wings, small but strong, Elias smiled. The future was uncertain, dangerous, and vast, but together, they could face it. Courage had brought them here. Compassion would guide them forward. And hope, fragile but bright, would never fade. He whispered one final promise: "No matter what comes, you will survive. We survive together. And the galaxy will remember what humans are capable of." The little dragon chirped softly in reply, and Elias felt, deep in his heart, that they had already begun to change the universe.